I started working in 1976, and I worked for 24 and a half years and only had 3 weeks off.
Morning, sunshine. How are you?
Really turns me on.
Oh, yeah?
I take it as people liked the work that I did.
Good morning.
What was that secret sauce?
16 years of Dallas, I never had a bad day at work.
I love you so much.
The other big storyline was when they
When
killed
they-
you off.
When they ran over God. But he came back, which none of the cast knew, none of the crew knew.
So, what is an acceptable period of time? 2, 3 days?
Step by Step came along. Were you ready to do a comedy?
I was ready. I'm not sure the world was.
Well, then let's get it crossed off the list.
Best friend's first day. She's sitting on gold.
We are doing this franchise, the iconic
I
men
know.
of the 90s.
I know.
When you hear that, and that's attached to Patrick Duffy, what do you think about that word, iconic?
It's better than being ARP's sexiest man still alive. So I'll take anything I can get at this stage. So if you say iconic, I'll be your guy.
How do you define iconic?
I think it's in relationship to what people perceive of you. That's why they're called icons on the computer. They represent something that is not really there. So, somebody like myself, I started working in 1976, and I worked for 24 and a half years and only had 3 weeks off.
Wow.
And so people don't necessarily know me as much as Patrick Duffy as they know me as the Man from Atlantis or Dallas or Step by Step. So I'm iconic because of what I represent, not because of necessarily who I am. Because there can be iconic people that you recognize that it's wasting a word to use iconic on them because they're horrible people, So I take it as people liked the work that I did, and that's why I'm iconic.
Did you always want to be an actor?
I registered at the University of Washington to be an architect. And a high school drama teacher pulled me aside in my senior year and said, some people can make a living doing what you're doing after school in the plays, and if you'd like, I'll write a letter of recommendation to get you into this special school in Seattle. I said, oh, okay. I went home that afternoon, and my dad was reading the paper, and I said, Dad, I'm not gonna be an architect, I'm gonna be an actor. And he went, yeah, okay. And he went back to reading. I thought, well, that was easy. The rest was hard. I didn't work for about 10 years, but I enrolled in this program. And from that moment on, I was an actor.
You knew this was what you were supposed to be doing.
I don't know if supposed to, but certainly what I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it high school then when the acting bug hit you, or did you play before?
I used to be every hero on Warner Brothers Westerns that I watched. I would imitate Michael Landon as Little Joe, roll around on the floor like I was shot and pretending. And in junior high school, I went with a friend, and he was going to read a part for the play, and I got it. And I think that was when the seed was planted, but I didn't consider it an employable profession because I didn't know it was a profession. In Montana, we had one movie theater, so to find out that you could actually do and get paid for something that was so much fun. I'd cry. I was the best actor on my living room floor you have ever seen,
So the masses really first got to know you when you were the Man from Atlantis, right? How did you land that part?
Well, I was actually a carpenter, and I was driving a truck delivery, and I was building a boat in Long Beach, California, remodeling a boat, and going to auditions. I went to give my resume picture to Ruth Comforti was her name, casting lady, who I owe my entire career to, by the way. And she took my picture and went, thank you. Next. And I left, and I went, oh, well, that's it. And I had done one walk-on single line on a show called Switch with Eddie Albert and Robert Wagner. And I was fourth policeman or something. I walked in literally and said, the car's waiting, and left. And she was balancing her checkbook, doing her bookkeeping at her kitchen table watching kind of like that, Switch. And when I did my thing, she happened to look up, and she told me later, she said, and I saw you walk across and say that line, and I thought, that's not how he appeared to me when he came in the room. I should call him back. And she gave me a call back and was taken to the network, and they said, no, we don't want him. And we said, why? And I weighed at that point maybe 170 pounds or something. And the word was, he's not an 8 o'clock hero. He's a 10 o'clock hero. Because they're more intellectual and less brawny. And this was for an 8 o'clock show. So they put me in a training program. And I worked out and ate like a 5-man team. I gained about 20 pounds of bulk, and then they made me all up, put my eyes in, my webbed hands, and marched me back over to NBC and said, "What do you think now?" And they went, "Okay." And that's how I got the job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's the first one of those kind of shows of that kind of underwater magic kind of stuff. So it launched, I left that show, and 7 days later, I signed my Dallas contract.
Really? So it really was, you had no downtime really at all.
And after Dallas, I had 2 weeks off and signed my step-by-step contract.
So tell me about Bobby Ewing.
This is work, honey. I told you I'm Ewing Oil's Goodwill Ambassador.
How would you describe him? He was like the ultimate, like, good guys guy.
Yeah.
You had JR, so you couldn't really be that much of a jerk.
No, and they needed the balance, too.
Yeah.
The show needed the balance, and it was an adjustment for me because, Larry was, and to this day, even though he doesn't know it right now, my very best friend. From the moment we met, we became best friends to literally, I was with him maybe an hour and a half before he died. And we were best friends the whole time. And Linda Gray, we were the Three Musketeers. So, I had the best job in the world, and it was the most frustrating first few episodes because they went, "We can write anything for JR. He can, go to bed, he can kill people, he can, Bobby, none of the above."
Yeah.
And it was with conversations with the executive producer, who became a mentor and a great friend of mine, Leonard Katzman, conversations in this tacky motel dining room at night after every shoot where I go, "Lenny, please write something that's, at least enjoyable to do." And he did. And he switched it around and gave Bobby the periphery around being the good guy that made him, I think, for me, more attractive to play. Because he had failings. He had temper. He had all these things, but not in the beginning. And after that was done, it was the best job I ever had.
Did you think coming in when you signed that contract, this can go for a while? But I'm sure you never thought this was my forevermore, you know?
Well, here's an interesting thing. In 1978, Atlantis was being canceled, and I got a script for a show called Young Pioneers. But I also got a script for Dallas. So I turned down that in 1978, and I took Dallas. And literally all of us, Larry lied about it for years, but, sorry, Larry. But we were all on the phone at the end of the fifth episode going, "We have no idea if this is going. Find another job. We're leaving Dallas in 20 minutes." And none of us knew it would happen. And we started very low in the ratings, but it's built really quickly. And the rest was, once they shot Larry and then brought him back, that put us in a stratosphere. It was appointment viewing. And then it was discussed for 7 days. And then anticipated, but they would watch it as a family. And it was a great coming together. And now people are watching streaming in their bedrooms or on their things. So I think it's an era that shan't return.
What was that secret sauce? Do you think it was because you guys
was 'cause of
were
God.
so friends?
It was because of God.
God.
And I think in large part it was because we loved each other so much as a group of actors. There was never, quite literally, never a single bad day on set in 13. And then the reboot, so 16 years of Dallas, I never had a bad day at work.
Wow.
I never had to adjust to somebody's personality. It was just the perfect atmosphere. Every guest star we had would say, "Please, can my character come back? I want to be." And it wasn't just because they wanted to work. They loved the stuff that we were able to do. So I got to play with my two best friends for 16 years.
Do you have any standout memories of those early days on set with Larry and Linda and Barbara?
Yeah, but what are the ratings rules around here? Well, first of all, Larry and I, we're buddies off camera, on camera. Every single morning that we worked together, at 7 a.m., I'd go to his room, we'd open a bottle of champagne, and we'd have a glass of champagne together. And just toast our great fortune. We're working. He would finish the bottle during the course of the day. I would have the glass with him and do the thing. But that was the sort of establishment of our ritual as friends. Everybody knew it. Where's Patrick? He's in Larry's room. Yeah, they got 10 more minutes. When you hear, count 5 minutes and then he's ready. So the alchemy was part of it. It was propitious that Dallas was about oil during the oil embargo. It was about not ugly, but ostentatious American style. It was the Reagan years. The Dallas Cowboys were the #1 football. Everything seemed to gel at one time, and we just surfed. You know, we didn't take ourselves very seriously at all. You know, we were just so lucky. The best thing is to have your name on a parking spot, you know, in front of the soundstage.
Besides Who Shot JR, you know, the other big storyline was when they killed you off.
When they ran over God.
Goodness,
killed God.
what was happening?
But he came back.
Why was it important for you to leave at that time?
Hubris.
You think?
A bit. I would never leave a show during a contract. That just is an anathema as far as I'm concerned. But I had a 7-year. At the end of the 7th year, the show was hot as could be. And it was an ensemble cast. But I thought that if I was ever going to leave a show and help it segue into another job, I should leave at the top
When you're hot.
and do it when you're hot. Well, I left at the top. It didn't happen the way I thought. I worked, but I didn't go right into another series. I did a lot of TV movies and those kinds of things. And about halfway through that season, the ratings in Dallas dropped, not specifically because of me, but partially, I'm sure. And then the rumor started, well, what are we going to do? And I came home one day from wherever, and shows you how long ago it was, the answer machine had a light blinking, played the thing, and it was Hagman. And he went, Patrick, it's Larry. I want you to come out to Malibu. Let's get drunk. I want to talk to you. And I said, they're going to ask me back on the show.
Wow.
And that's what happened.
That's what happened.
That's what happened. They asked me back. Larry said, I'm not having any fun. And if I'm not having fun, I don't want to do the show, so you got to come back. Okay, I'll come back. And so then we devised the coming back part, which none of the cast knew, none of the crew knew. We didn't have our Dallas crew. We went to a commercial house somewhere in LA, and they built in the middle of this huge soundstage a single shower stall with a hot water tank, and we had a case of Irish Spring soap. Leonard and the unit production manager were the only two people there from Dallas. And we filmed an Irish Spring commercial an entire day, all so that the door would open, because you couldn't see anybody's hand because you didn't know. So the door would magically open. I'd turn around and I'd say, good morning. Count, count, count. And you can have a good morning too if you wake up like the Duffy family with Irish Spring soap. And I did it on the first take, but Leonard said, they're going to know. So we spent the rest of the day doing that same bit.
Good morning.
And then they cut that little bit out. They flew it to New York on the night of the airing of the show and spliced it into the main feed and moved it from the middle of the episode where she goes into the bathroom and her husband at the time is in the shower and they have a conversation and they do it. They moved it to the end of the show. She goes in there, she opens it. Victoria, the actress, didn't know what was going on. I wasn't there because her part would already have been filmed. And it was me. And none of that year happened.
Honey, what's the matter? You look like you just saw a ghost.
That is so bananas. When you decided to leave, did you get what kind of fan mail, what kind of protest mail?
All of the above. There was a complete panoply of reactions. I got stopped in parking lots with people crying. A lot of people invested a lot of Dallas heart in that year.
Yeah.
And when they were told it didn't happen, you know, trick or treat, you know, whatever, April Fools, they were upset. And they were upset with me for a while, but the ratings came back up and we got 5 more years out of the show.
Why do you think so many families across, you know, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status fell in love with the Ewings so much?
One theory, and I sort of have signed on to it, is that almost all extended families have a representative on Dallas.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
you got the crazy uncle who you just can't stand. You got the one good guy. You got the tart, you know, just don't make a play for my dad, kind of thing. So everybody can see something they can relate to
Yeah.
into it. And they have somebody to root for.
And after Dallas ended the first time, you did go on to do a little bit of Knots Landing.
I crossed over.
This is my wife, Darlene, and my
Hi,
brother,
darling.
Bob.
How do? How do you do?
But the key was they took my older brother, the between brother, Gary Ewing, and put him in the show as a character. So there was a Ewing in there. So we would refer to Gary on Dallas.
Right.
They would refer to the Dallas family on their show. And every once in a while, Larry or myself would just show up and be part of their thing. And that was great fun.
I think you spoofed, was it on Family Guy where you spoofed?
I dreamt I saw the strangest episode of Family Guy, and there was a giant chicken, and Stewie was an octopus.
Hey, come on now.
That is as close as I can accept the term iconic. Because when Seth called, he was a crazed Dallas fanatic. And he asked if we would do it, and we thought, this is so cool, of course we'll do it. And it was at that moment you thought, this has legs that will
Yeah.
just extend like roots from a giant tree. It'll go everywhere, and anybody can make a switch. So we've dropped little nuggets all around, and it gives you a sense of pride to see that happen.
When Step by Step came along, were you ready to do a comedy and just say, a sitcom, and just let me completely go?
Well, I was ready. I'm not sure the world was.
Will there ever be a second time around?
When the show was finally canceled, that was the first phone call I got. They said, we want you to come and do this show called Step by Step.
Wow.
And
And 7 seasons it ran
seven
for.
seasons.
I mean, why?
Suzanne became my Larry.
Oh, so you guys, when you met, that was, oh.
Best friends first day.
I love that.
How close do you want to get?
She was a mentor in the very
Well,
beginning.
she's sitcom.
She's
you know,
sitcom gold.
Gold, yeah.
Yeah.
She's in rarefied air. in
And I'd
sitcoms
played
for sure.
the Man from Atlantis, a real ball of humor, and then Bobby Ewing, you know. So, I was ready to do a comedy, but she was the one who, I would do a bit or part of a scene or something, and I'd always glance over at her, and she'd give me whichever one. Can I do it again, please? Yeah. And then we found our footing, and it was, again, the best job I ever had.
I can almost still hear her saying Frank. Like, I can almost
Frank?
hear that.
Well, usually it came with a slap on the shoulder. It was, oh, Frank. And I was like, oh, God.
Frank, look.
We recently actually talked to her about co-starring with you.
Uh-oh.
And she mentioned how you worked as a director on Step by Step as well, and that you were often like in a romantic hug scene, and you were like maybe giving directions at the same time as you were hugging.
Well, and then because she's notoriously horrible at hitting her mark. So, when I was directing, I'd come into the room, I know where she's supposed to be, I know where the 3 cameras are, and none of them have a shot of her. I would just put her, almost lift her up and set her down where she was supposed to be, but she took it, as a gesture of love, which it was.
What's something about Suzanne that would probably surprise us that we may not know?
I think the serious side of her is, it's not hidden, but she doesn't play to it. She's a copious writer. I know, it's 20 or 30 books now she's written, but her first book was a book of poetry. It wasn't a script for a TV show or anything. She wrote a small book of verse, and that's basically who she is. She's a mother above all else. She's a caretaker. She's just one of the best people, and she's a go-to person. If I ever needed something, I know I could. Same with Haggie, but same with her. I could pick up the phone and say, Suzanne, I really need help on this. It would be there. Her and Alan would do it.
You are one of the most charming people that I've ever met. What do you think that this business, what has it taught you about perseverance, gratitude, those types of things?
Well, the middle word is really the key, gratitude. I think if you have gratitude, and I think you have to develop gratitude, I don't think I had gratitude of the type that I feel is valuable now. The first day I reported to the Man From Atlantis set, I was thrilled, and then as it got attention, I sort of felt I deserved it, that first kind of blush of success and everything. And then you just realize how many people don't have it. And, you know, I'm grounded in my Buddhist practice as well. And literally every morning, every evening, it's about gratitude. It's taking an inventory of what you've done that day. Did you measure up to your expectations? What can you do better the next day? And you start the next day by saying, here's my plan for the day and how can I accomplish this? And it just developed an appreciation, which then became gratitude.
So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to give you this.
There's a certain reality, I think, to my career, which is I'm basically going to play good guys about 99% of the time. And that's something I can tell you. I'm not going to come back as an evil twin brother or something like that. I will naturally be playing a good guy on the show. I think basically I look like the good guy, the hero, you know, and I like playing those parts. I get a great deal of satisfaction out of it, and I don't have to explain a lot to my kids then. Daddy, why'd you strangle that woman is not one of the questions it's easy to answer at the breakfast table, see, so.
Yeah, he had dark hair then. Yeah.
Who was that guy?
Who was that guy? But, you know, it's true. I do enjoy playing good guys.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it. And it was also true when my boys were both young, you know, because I said that in there. At the breakfast table, you don't want to answer the question, Daddy, why did you strangle that woman last night? You know, that's not what, you know, conversation. So I do look that I'll be playing good guys 90% of the time, you know. Even my bad guys are kind of good.
You've talked about your peers and your relationships with them, but who do you turn to for advice? Did you have a mentor? Did you have somebody who really could kind of guide you?
I've had a series of mentors. The first mentor, as I said, was Leonard Katzman on Dallas. He was old school, you know. So I liked his whole approach to do your best work on take one. You know, if we need take two, it's a safety, but let's move on. And it made us all rise to the occasion. And then for years, you know, in terms of staying grounded, my wife was my mentor in that sense. And now, quite honestly, in the last 7 months, I look to Linda for not necessarily guidance, but a perspective. You know, and when you respect somebody, as well as love them, but when you respect them, it takes the emotional part out of what they say, and you really listen to, I respect who you are and what you know.
If you could give advice to a young actor out there that's just breaking into the business, what would that be?
I would tell somebody starting out, never give up, all those things. Never give up, try your hardest, don't let them beat you down. But if it comes to a point after years and years and years that it's not happening, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Because the worst thing, as opposed to just being unemployed, is to spend 30 years of unemployment and realize you're never going to be employed and you've missed the opportunity to create such value in that time.
Yeah.
So you need to take a really introspective inventory on a regular basis, you know, including your success. But specifically, if it's not working, heartbreak is just not something to carry to your death.